Shoshana Bryen is the Senior Director for Security Policy at the Jewish Institute for National Security Affairs. Shoshana Bryen, welcome.
My pleasure.
Your reaction to Freeman's characterization that it was the Israel lobby that was behind the campaign to get him out of the National Intelligence Council.
It's amazing that you could put out a statement like that. I don't know what the Jewish lobby is. I don't know what it does. JINSA was deliberately public in its thinking that Chaz Freeman was not the appropriate person to hold that job. And it really had less to do with anything he said about Israel, although I think his analysis on the subject of Israel is appalling. It had a lot more to do with the people with whom he's associated in his post-ambassadorial career, and that would be the Chinese state oil company and the government of Saudi Arabia. It seemed to us at JINSA that people who are going to be charged with providing intelligence information to the President of the United States should not have foreign entanglements that might affect their analysis.
And I hear what you're saying is that it wasn't really his statements about Palestine which has called for his stepping back from the position. However, Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer, who's been a critic of Freeman, it's been reported, privately conveyed his concerns to White House Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel last week, released a statement. Freeman was the wrong guy for this position. His statements against Israel were way over the top and severely out of step with the administration. A lot of people do think this is connected to his what he has said in the past about Israel.
Chuck Schumer is a sitting United States senator elected by the people of New York. Would Mr. Freeman say that he is the Jewish lobby? I think that's mixing of metaphors. I don't think that Ambassador Freeman was talking about Senator Schumer. Senator Schumer is entitled to think whatever he wants about Ambassador Freeman's comments about. Nevertheless, I go back to JINSA's position, which is the only thing for which I'm responsible, and that is that we don't think that people who sit on the board of the Chinese National Oil Company, look at it this way. The Chinese National Oil Company pumps oil from Sudan. Sudan is a problem for us because of the problems in Darfur. 2 weeks ago, the International Criminal Court indicted the president of Sudan, who, in retaliation, tossed out a number of the nonprofit organizations, NGOs, who were feeding the people in Darfur.
So you're saying JINSA's opposition to Freeman is about China and Sudan?
JINSA, that's one of the reasons. That is one, and in fact, we wrote about that today in a piece that was published this afternoon. The second one is Saudi Arabia. And not that I'm a great opponent of Saudi Arabia. At the moment, I find Saudi interests and American interests to be very closely aligned, particularly on the subject of Iran, and that has positive repercussions for us in the Persian Gulf. But I do think that if you're planning to be the guy who vets intelligence information for the president, you ought not to be head of a think tank that takes its primary funding from a foreign government.
But clearly he's not the only government official, high-ranking official that has connections to Saudi Arabia. We saw it a lot with the Bush administration.
Absolutely. And we protested that as well.
Now, I just want to quote Jim Loeb, a journalist in Washington, D.C. The campaign against Freeman was spearheaded by Steve Rosen, a former official for the powerful American Israel Public Affairs Committee, who is currently facing trial for allegedly passing classified information to the Israel government. Last week, 11 congressional representatives, including several major financial ties to AIPAC and other right-wing pro-Israel groups, called on the DNI's Inspector General to investigate Freeman's financial ties to Saudi Arabia. We invited AIPAC. AIPAC did not take a public position on Freeman.
Steve has not worked for AIPAC for a long time. AIPAC can choose or not choose to have a public position on Chaz Freeman. I know I'm not helping you because you'd like me to be defending the Israel lobby. We're not part of it, and I don't see where it's relevant.
Your organization has taken no position about Freeman and the issue and his position and things that he has said about Israel.
Yeah, we said it was appalling analysis, and we stand by that.
M.J. Rosenberg of the Israel Policy Forum is writing that, quote, the whole anti-Freeman effort was engineered by the people who fear that Obama will abandon current policies towards Israel from acceptance of the occupation to forceful opposition to it.
M.J. Rosenberg, of course, works for J Street, which is a lobbying organization itself. So to be clear about where he stands, he works for J Street. But I think what he said was there are people who are afraid that the Obama administration will do something differently than the Bush administration to the detriment of Israel, and that's the fear people have. I would say that President Bush went way, way over what one might have considered a red line when he announced himself in favor of a two-state solution and put his weight behind the independence of a Palestinian state. I didn't notice that anybody got all that excited about it, and I suspect that President Obama, far from changing the Bush administration's parameters, will follow them. The U.S. was committed and remains committed to a two-state solution and an independent state of Palestine.
You did put out a statement saying, "We are appalled that a Democratic administration has wandered so far away from or deliberately scorned Senator Scoop Jackson's legacy of a strong American defense capability, close relationships with our Democratic allies, and serious commitment to human rights."
Yes, but that was, by the way, not really so much related to Israel as we talked about the problem of the giving up the radars in Europe without a conversation with the Baltic states and Poland, who are relying on us.
Your position has nothing to do with Freeman's stand and quotations and things that he has said about Israel and Palestine.
I didn't say it had nothing to do with it. I said it's primarily not based on that, and I said what I meant. It is primarily not based on that. I think his analysis of the situation in the Middle East is appalling, and on those grounds alone, I would not want him to be my intelligence advisor or my intelligence vetter. But the real problem with the person who vets intelligence, in our view, is that person should not have foreign entanglements.
Shoshana Bryen is the Senior Director for Security Policy at the Jewish Institute for National Security Affairs. Shoshana Bryen, thank you so much for your time.
It was my pleasure.